Disagree, number one, because I think that in America it's the land of second chances. I think number two, there always needs to be some degree of compassion. People make mistakes. Now, you may say that this wasn't a mistake, that it oozed out of his mouth naturally. Skip, I agree with that. It might be something that's in his heart. Clearly, the ease and the comfort with which he said it, came across as if it's in his heart. But you also have to respect the fact, as I'm sure you do, that as a black man, I don't need somebody to either spew the N-word or refrain from doing so to get this feeling about what's in your heart on a day-to-day basis when I'm walking around certain people, working in the workplace with them, communicating with them, seeing some of the practices, some of the things they joke about, some of the things that they say. And so as a result of that, as a black man, I refuse, as much as I abhor the use of that word by somebody outside of the African American community. Let me be very, very clear about this. Even though we sit there and we need to completely eradicate it from our language, there is no doubt about it. And I don't want to hear arguments about the difference between the word ending with an ER as opposed to an A and all of that nonsense. I don't want to hear that. I understand in some people's eyes it's a different connotation, but it's a different conversation for another day because it's too deep. But in the end, despite the fact that I recognize that the word needs to be completely eradicated and omitted from our vocabulary, myself included, all right? Let me also be very, very clear to America. Black folks talking amongst ourselves and using the word is entirely different than somebody outside of our community spewing it in our direction. I don't have to explain it to anybody. Get over it. That's the way it is.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. But I've been in those locker rooms for years, and I've seen two black players use that term back and forth as a term of endearment, as a bonding word, a cultural bond. We've been through this. We're going through this. Now, again, would your forefathers like you using that word? Probably not. But that's a whole another issue for another day. But Stephen A., you cannot tell me that because a white player often hears two black players refer to themselves as that word between each other, that encourages the white player then to use that word as a hate word, because you're not using it black to black as a hate word. You're not using it out of anger at each other. When you get mad at somebody, you're not going to use that. I'm sorry, 2 + 2 don't equal 4 to me. Well, that's a hate word. That is declaring what's in your heart, that you have racism in your heart. I'm sorry, that's what it is. For a white man.
Skip, I think you're misunderstanding. I'm not disagreeing with what you just said. And maybe it's my fault that I haven't really clarified. Skip, what I'm saying is they not only use it with each other, but I've seen situations when white teammates have used it to them. And it was okay. It was okay. And I'm saying, how does that happen? How does that happen? Like, it's like, if there is no white person that has ever been in my life or in my circle in any capacity that has ever thought for 1 second that they can roll up on me and use that word in my presence. It has not happened. It has not happened. But you have professional athletes who communicate with white teammates, and white teammates have used that word in their presence, and it's shrugged right off their shoulders. That's what I was alluding to. I don't mean to come across like I'm disagreeing with you, because I don't. I agree with you. I'm just telling you what's going on. And even though you're still reporting and you still do. All right, go ahead.
Let me ask you personally, Stephen A. Smith. If you were in a locker room and you heard one white player refer to another white player as a fun term, as a loving term, as a teammate term, a term of endearment, hey, N-word, you know what I'm talking about, would you be offended by that?
Skip, not only would I be offended by that, I have been offended by that. And when I saw a white player do that, I rolled up right on him and said, my man, that ain't cool.
It ain't
Don't
cool.
you ever let me hear you say that again in my presence. I said, and this is not a reporter talking to you. This is a black man who happens to be a reporter in your face telling you that ain't cool. Don't do it again. I won't tell you who that player is, but I can assure you I've seen him many times, and he's never said that in my presence again.
And I'm pretty sure the black players on that team that you're talking about, they wouldn't love it.
No, and you're both saying it's going to be a very big challenge for first-year head coach Chip Kelly, who goes from molding young kids to trying to convince grown men. So it should be very,
I don't think this is over yet.
No, it's definitely not over. And in regards to further discipline, Roger Goodell was...
What's up, people? It's your boy Level here, back with another video. Anyway, let me do this real quick. First of all, let me first say, for a second, I do need to apologize to Nate, because to an extent, what he said was taken out of context. He was not talking about Mr. T. He was talking about plastic and relating to Nintendo. So he said, so you're going to leave because of plastic, ... N-I-G-G-A. Anyway, so I want to clarify that, but that does not change anything. That does not make what happened and what took place in that word being used proper and kosher. Now, Nate, I told you many times, just like you said in your video, something about Whitey. You know, I don't know why you went that way, but that's your choice to go that way. I was trying to have a mature conversation. If I thought you was racist, Nate, I wouldn't even bother making this video. But I thought it was an opportunity to address something that needs to be addressed on YouTube, and period. This is not cool. Just like you just saw Skip say, just like you saw Stephen A say. A black man and a white man, both saying this is not cool. No matter how you try to frame it, shape it, form it, it's not cool. That's all I was saying. Now, if I didn't think you was cool, I wouldn't even waste my time. If I thought you was racist, I wouldn't waste my time. But sometimes there's moments of defining moments where you could take things and shape it and form it in a way that people learn from it. That's what I was trying to do. Now, you could have took that and easily said, you know what, my bad. I didn't know that, that word even in N-I-G-G-A isn't proper, but you didn't do that. You went a whole different way, different form, different attitude, different mindset that I'm not at. But anyway, I'm showing this because it need to be shown, it need to be said, because there was a lot of crazy stuff going on in the comment section. I tried to tell you in the comment section, I don't think you're a racist. I didn't think you was a racist when this happened with Zaire. I don't think you're a racist now. I think you are disconnected from a reality and a understanding that should be engraved in your understanding, being the age that you are. I can understand, Nate, if you was like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. With this culture and this generation of kids that seem to, buck against the proper way of doing things. But you're not that young. Now, you're an older guy. You're my age and probably a little bit older than me. I'm not for sure. But you ain't young. You 30 plus. So you should already know that being a white male, being a Caucasian, that might not be cool to use that in any shape or form. I was showing you where it seemed like you made that same understanding be known to I of Core, but I guess it's not. This ain't no attack on Whitey. This is not no black versus white. This is a situation where a person say, hey, Nate, that's not cool. What the response should be is Nate taking responsibility and accountability for what Nate done. Nate chose to use that word, whether he was talking to another white brother, or he was being racial. I don't believe he was being racial, but either way it go, Nate's supposed to take accountability for what Nate done. It seems like you want to divert and reflect accountability, and you want to bring up Hard 8, and you want to bring up all these different other brothers, which you don't know if I ever said anything in their comment. You don't know what I do. It's been many times where I've said stuff to Hard 8, not only about the cursing and all that stuff, but also about the women and all the things he do on his channel. But I can't stop him. But I believe you are a sensible, person. A person that seemed to have a head on his shoulder that can, you know what I'm saying, have a respected conversation back and forth. I don't look at Hard 8 like that, so I don't even waste my time. I don't look at other individuals like that, so I don't waste my time. But I have respect for you. That respect is still there, but it's like questionable because instead of engaging me and having a respectable conversation, you want to make this as somebody trying to make this racial. I never said you was racial at any point in my video. I said that I can't give you a pass. When I mean give you a pass, nobody can just chop this up as a mistake. You should know this. So, with that being said, I'm gonna use this analogy. If I walked up on two women and they was calling each other bees and hoes, right? And I'm listening to them and they say, you know what? You can call me this and you can call me that if you choose to. I don't have no problem with you calling me a bee. I don't have no problem with you calling me a hoe and all that type of stuff. You know, so if you want to do that, you got the right to do that. I'm still not going to do it because I have too much respect for them, even if they don't have respect for themselves. Now, all these people you named, if they ain't got enough respect for themselves and for this community, not to use a word, you should have enough respect for them and yourself and be accountable and responsible enough not to use the word. That's what I'm saying. And when I said out of the heart the mouth speak, like the video you just made, that's your heart, Nate. That's where you really feel. You showed yourself. Still don't think you're racist, but I think you got some detachment from the realities and serious situations that can come and arise from using that type of language. I think you're really detached and you showed yourself a little bit unconcerned about it. But I still don't think you're racist. So with that being said, it was like a little divine intervention happened today. They talked about this again on ESPN, and I'm going to pause it right here and I'm going to set it up for that portion to be watched as well. I hope y'all enjoy this. This will be the last video you see me make of this. Like I said again, Nate, I don't think you're a racist. I think you're a cool dude. If I thought you was a racist, I would have chopped it up, chucked the deuces, and wouldn't have said nothing to you. But I don't. So I decided that I'd tackle this, and I would come at you man to man, not black to white, male to male. Anyway, peace out. Stay tuned for the rest of the video. Deuces.
My initial response is, I'm incredibly uncomfortable with this conversation, Skip.
I understand.
And my discomfort comes from the fact that I think we live in a kind of world where I'm not allowed to be as open as I would like to be about this. Because there are some things contextually that have grown to infuriate me over the last several weeks. But I'm going to try my best to elocute my thoughts, and I hope people understand. Whether it's John Wooten or anybody else, let me be very, very clear about what I'm about to say. Particularly for public consumption as it pertains to the airwaves that we are on right now. I disagree with Charles Barkley when he says, you know, you can use the word in the locker room, white, black, or whatever. I disagree with that. I totally agree with anybody who looks at us and says, Stephen A. Smith or anybody else has no business using the N-word over television. Okay? I know there are people out there that think that I've used the word. I maintain I did not. I don't care how it sounded. But in the end, if the company sits there and says, can't use the word, and they believe that I used the word and they've gone into suspension, then I got to man up and accept the consequences, and that's that. I understand that. That, to me, however, is a separate issue from what we're discussing. I think anybody with sense understands that you don't go over the national airwaves or radio or any place like that spewing such a nefarious word as it pertains to the lexicon of American history. We understand that. Okay, I get that, and I completely agree with it. I heard somebody talking about it on Sirius XM radio. I forgot the host's name last Friday night after 10 o'clock when I was driving from South Carolina to Atlanta. I understand it. I get it. But the one thing about it is that makes me incredibly uncomfortable is something that Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, who you quoted in your article, Skip, you know, you talked about him and some of the things that he had to say. and I'm not going to sit there and get into it, but you have a quote in your article where he says, we hijack or wordjacked that word that was used in a nefarious and horrible way and drained it of its poison and turned it into a word of endearment. I'm not even sure I totally agree with that in terms of what he said. So what I did this morning, Skip, on the way here, is picked up the phone and called Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, who I've known for many, many years and I consider a friend. And it harkened me back to another paragraph in your article where he says, all of us in the black community do not agree with the use of that word as a term of endearment, which is what I just said. He said, but that is our right to disagree amongst ourselves. That is where he and I are totally on the same page. And that is where my frustration elevates to anger. Because let me be very, very clear. We talk about the iniquities, the nefariousness, the wickedness involved with the N-word. Understand, it's not the word alone that was nefarious and wicked. It was the actions associated with it. Somebody didn't sit there and use the N-word and elect to hang us because of the word. They wanted to hang us. They wanted to brutalize us. They wanted to torture us. They wanted to kill us. They wanted to do all of these things. That was just a word that came with it. That, and loosely, I might add. When have black people done that to one another while using that word? Again, it's not a justification. I want Mr. Wooten to understand. I totally agree with them. Because the world that we live in and what has transpired, okay, and the way that word has been taken, and all of a sudden, it's wicked, period. And it doesn't highlight the iniquities of one segment of our society who disenfranchised and tortured and minimized another segment of our society. Now we've generalized it. How that has happened, I don't understand. I don't get that. I understand and appreciate you. I understand and appreciate the many great people that work here at ESPN. I understand and appreciate the people that I've listened to on ESPN radio and Sirius XM radio and beyond. I get that. I'm not questioning anybody's intent. What I'm saying is, think about what folks are saying here. A word so wicked, no, so nefarious, so negative, that came associated with some of the most heinous things we've ever known in the history of this nation, if not this world, somehow, some way, has been lumped into a bowl where black folks amongst themselves off the airwaves in the privacy of their own communication with one another. Now we have to monitor how we choose to communicate with one another because you all on the outside, whose ancestors inflicted such damage upon us, now get to tell us how we're supposed to talk? I mean, come on now. That's a bigger issue. Because to me, what you're trying to do is you're trying to lump it all in one bowl. You're trying to act as if us talking amongst ourselves is the same as you or the community that you're from, considering history. It's the same usage. It's the same intent. Come on now. You can't do that. And I'm not saying, again, I support Mr. Wooten in terms of what he's saying he would like to happen. I support him in terms of eradicating it from our language.
Yeah.
I understand why he feels that way. And in the society that we live in, I support it, which is why I've been on these airwaves saying that I'm not trying to use the word anymore. But I have in the past, and I'm not going to be a phony about it.
Okay.
Just like Mike Wilbon wasn't being a phony about it. Just like Charles Barkley wasn't being a phony about it, even though I'm not going as far as Barkley went. I understand and I realize the times we live in, and that has to stop. But it is not a cause or a rationale or a reason for people to then turn around and say, oh, y'all should have never used it in the first place. How are you, the villain, going to look at victims and tell us how we're supposed to deal with something that was inflicted upon us and feel like you got a right to say that to us with a straight face? There's something wrong with that. And that's all I'm asking. A generation, decades have been going on. We found a way to offset and minimize the meaning of that word to affect us in such a vicious manner amongst ourselves. Right, wrong, or otherwise, it's what we did for us to help us through
a time that we didn't ask for, that was inflicted upon us, and now you're going to come along and act like it's the same thing? If we're talking amongst ourselves, even privately, oh, you people are irresponsible, oh, you're wrong. Really? That's what we're doing now? This is why it's hard for folks like myself, especially as a black man. It's not hard for me. I should say it's hard for me because my grandmother was white. And I've got a lot of white friends, and there's a lot of wonderful, God-fearing white people that I know, that I love, to be quite honest with you, just like his brothers and sisters I know. But the reason why I understand why it's so hard for people from my community to move beyond racial issues is because every time we try, somebody reels us back in by trying to treat us as if we're lumped into the same bowl, like these iniquities that have taken place against us that was self-inflicted, or we contributed to it, instead of owning up to what they did or their ancestors did. It's not right. And people need to calm down with that.
That's well said. Let me point out, because you've referred a couple times to Mr. Wooten, we're talking about John Wooten here, who is the driving force behind the Fritz Pollard organization that oversees the Rooney Rule, that oversees minority hiring in the NFL. I've listened for long. Let me speak. Let the perpetrator speak, okay? Let the white guy speak about the white community here. I've heard enough. You know, I say often on this show, I don't look at my Twitter responses. I tell you that all the time. I think it's not healthy, mentally healthy. But when we do a race topic, when I write about race for .com, I do look at my responses. And after I declared here on this show, after Riley Cooper was caught on film saying what he said at the country concert about I'll fight all the ends here, and he used it with the hard ER, the original derivation of that word, the verbal evil that it is. I said he should be cut by the Eagles to send a message around the league. This will not be tolerated, spoken that way by a white person, a white player. And I looked at my responses, and I was horrified to find white person after white person after white person, dozens upon dozens, saying to me on Twitter, hey, they use the word, why shouldn't we? That's what's out there. It horrifies me that there's even one drop of potential for young white people in this country to think, well, gee, they must be like they always were. And this is deep psychological. And I know I'm overreacting here, but there was a time, as you know, that my forefathers, the white forefathers, considered the black race subhuman. It was good for only enslaving. Really, this is what we came from. So are we going to send that message to the young white people? That's the black people still think of themselves that way. Really? Really?
Hold it, gentlemen. Hold it, gentlemen. Who on this show has ever condoned that? No one. Not me, not you, Skip, not Robert. Nobody that has sat up on this set has condoned such a thing. What I'm pointing out and trying to highlight is exactly what Robert just brought up. Skip, the fact that you feel that way is one of the reasons we've been friends for 17 years. Okay? Because I know how you are. And I know how you feel. But you have to understand the dichotomy that exists between you, Skip, and where you're coming from and other white folks. You are saying that the word is so heinous, we should do away with it, period, and blah, blah, blah. No problem there, Skip. But there are other white folks that are saying, no, y'all shouldn't do it because we're not allowed to do it. Do you not see the difference?
Yeah, I do.
That's what I'm saying. Fair. I am saying that if Robert and Skip, what I am saying is the dichotomy that exists between what I just described Skip to be and I described some other folks to be that are out there lecturing the black community on how they're supposed to communicate with each other. I'm saying those individuals fall the hell back because we don't want to hear from you. I can hear from Skip all day. Don't come to me because you're one of those white dudes that's upset that you can't use it and you want to sit there and tell us how we're supposed to communicate with ourselves. If you're Skip and you're saying don't use it at all, that's an entirely different position to take than somebody who's just mad because they can't use it themselves.
All right, Stephen A.